The Browns have a defensive coordinator. How about that?
Look at that. Now we all get to pretend
And
that
it's
he
not
was our
Sean
top choice.
Desai.
No.
What did you say? Go ahead and say that again.
I said we all get to pretend he was our top choice. That's what happens. Every time the Browns hire somebody, we're like, yeah, he's the guy.
We got
I
our
wanted.
man. We got
Absolutely.
Well, he was in everybody's top two. At least most of the folks that I talked to.
I mean, he's got a ton of experience. I know Jason's heard great stuff from people that cover
we all
him.
went to bed last night thinking that it was going to be Desai. And we woke up this morning and it was like, I guess not.
Did we think it was all going to be Desai?
I read 2 or 3 pieces. One from, I think, Sports Illustrated. I think Mary Kay wrote a piece.
Yeah.
Sounds like the interview went well and they expect an offer.
Well,
soon.
it always
I think they
goes
just got
well.
misinformation, probably.
It always
Yeah.
goes. It depends who you talk to. If it's the agent of the candidate, they always say we're expecting an offer soon. Like,
Yeah.
it depends.
I mean,
who
we
you're
never know the
talking
source
to.
because it was, of course, unnamed sources. But
And this is always funny. I've never heard somebody on the day of a hire say it's a horrible hire. Everybody was like, he was the man all along.
Yeah.
They got their guy. It don't matter if they had a contract on the table for somebody else.
Right.
Jim Schwartz all along was really who they wanted to get.
let's do it this way.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're giving this hire a thumbs up or thumbs down based on what we know, I
Yeah.
think this is a unanimous thumbs up, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah.
Can anybody
No
say
doubt.
no?
No, it's a thumbs up. I was trying to text some people this morning who've been around the league for a long time who said he is elite. Like, he is an elite coordinator. He stops the run. That's what he does. And
Yes.
obviously that's what the Browns need. And if you want to start connecting dots, he was one of the candidates. He wasn't a finalist, but he was one of the candidates that the Browns liked in 2020 as the head coach for the Kevin job. And that was before Barry was here.
Right.
So he spent a year with Andrew in Philly, but obviously Paul DiPodesta likes him because that's who would have been making that call in 2020. So for him to be on that coaches list in 2020 tells you at the very top they've had their eye on him for quite some time.
His pedigree is sparkling, really, when you consider the fact he's got a Super Bowl under his belt. He
won a Super Bowl as a coordinator.
Eagles win Super Bowl 52, I believe, when the Eagles beat the Patriots. In Minnesota. That's what I look for. I look for some sort of winning pedigree.
Yeah.
And his defenses have been largely very, very good wherever he's been.
If you look at some of the DVOA, which is a very popular
Yes.
advanced analytics,
Especially now.
Yes. You look at in his years as either a head coach or a DC, which I believe is 10 total years, I think. Maybe 12.
I think 12.
I think it's 12. 10 of those 12 years, he was top half of the league.
Yeah.
6 of the 12 years, he was top 10. So, like, he's had his only really terrible year was his first year in Detroit when he was the head coach his first year there.
Well, he inherited a bad team,
yes,
too.
and his only 2 really bad defenses were both in Detroit.
He was 29-51 as a head coach.
he didn't do a good job as a head coach.
Made the playoffs one year, lost in the first round.
Right.
Essentially, when you try to dig into who this guy is and what he does, he likes to stop the run. Typically, he's done it with all-pro caliber interior defensive linemen. That's what I find very, very interesting because this cupboard is bare.
Yeah.
So what it tells me is the Browns front office has recognized that they made a colossal swing and miss coming into this season with no-name interior defensive linemen. And I'm sure that with Schwartz coming, that's going to be a major area of upgrade. I would go so far as to say I think the organization with this move has recognized that is the single biggest area of need. Agree?
I said it all year. Fix the defensive tackles. You're going to fix most of the issues.
Now, Bull, I think you're thinking wide receiver, aren't you?
Well, I still think in the grand scheme of things for the team that wide receiver is the most important thing, but I think defensive tackle is a close second for me. And I would say yes. I mean, obviously they're going to upgrade the talent there. I would also say that hopefully, because you're not going to replace every single defensive tackle on the roster.
No.
Right? I would think that hopefully Jim Schwartz will see something in at least 1 or 2 of the guys they currently have and get more out of them.
Jordan Elliott and Perrion Winfrey are going to be here next year.
Right. You're not going to get 5 new defensive tackles.
Yeah.
But, you at least need 2 new guys.
Man, Jordan, I'm going to tell you right now. They drafted him. Jordan Elliott was horrible his first 2 years.
Well, he doesn't have to be a starter next year necessarily. He's going to be on the team.
He was in the 20s.
I'd be surprised if he...
The 20s? The 20 percentile. Like, he's the 130th best tackle.
Yeah.
He has to show something. I mean, I get the fact that they can't replace everybody.
Yeah.
I think
Tommy Togiai is gone.
Definitely
he won't be back.
gone. I don't even think that's a decision, is it?
I think Taven Bryan's gone.
Well, He's a
He's
free
a free
agent.
agent.
He was
That
a
was a
one-year
one-year
free
deal.
agent
So
signing.
he's gone.
So
Yeah.
you got to
They need
keep
new
somebody.
starters. They need new
They need
starters on
Absolutely.
defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I think we talked about Deron Payne with Washington. Again, I assume he's going to be franchise tagged, but I think, I know the Browns can't just go bananas spending money this offseason, but I was reading an article this weekend about how the Browns could save $50 million in cap space without cutting a single player. There's ways around these things, and if he becomes a free agent, that guy's a game changer on defense, and that would be the guy to lead the way. Again, he may be franchise
I think
tagged,
Washington's going to franchise.
probably,
but
but
I would.
I'm not sure who else they have as free agents. So, and maybe whatever their philosophy is, franchise tag a defensive tackle. I don't know. But if he goes out there, that should be the number one target because he is a game changer for them in the run
Jason,
defense.
do we know where in the organization, who was the pivot point that decided that they had some really good interior defensive linemen 3 and 4 years ago,
Yeah.
and they let them walk? Do we know? That's why when Jim Donovan made his rant about this organization needs to be more transparent,
Yeah.
I saw a lot of fans push back on that. So, what difference does it make? We don't need to know. The reason I think this is important, who in the organization was driving the bus that we didn't need interior defensive linemen? I think that's important for us to know because it gives us something to hold on to as to who the hell is to blame for this. Is it Barry? Is it DePodesta? Who is it?
The pivot point to me was when they signed Jadeveon Clowney and released Sheldon Richardson.
Yeah, but who was the one that was making that decision?
Well, Paul DePodesta was here when they brought in Sheldon Richardson, when they brought in Larry Ogunjobi. So if you want to point to one person, I guess you would point
He
to
was
Andrew
also
Barry.
here when they let them get away.
Right, but I'm guessing you would point to Barry, but I don't know if that's fair or not. I really don't know.
Let's
so
be
I
fair,
shouldn't
though.
say.
Sheldon Richardson's old, and Larry Ogunjobi is highly overrated. He's an average
I
player.
would, I
he's
would take
better- I would
Ogunjobi
take
and
Ogunjobi
way better
in a
than what they
second
got.
over
Sure,
what
but
they
it's
have.
not like he's that good. Let's
listen,
not
he
get
had-
carried
Ogunjobi-
away.
What we have, he's
Yes.
a massive upgrade.
Yes, he's the best player in the world compared to what we have.
Ogunjobi had a pretty
Anybody is.
Ogunjobi had
I
a
don't
pretty
wanna
good
understate
year or
that.
two here, and then he had a bad year, and then he
Yeah.
was gone. Richardson was a serviceable veteran interior
I hear
lineman,
you.
and as soon as they signed Clowney, they moved on from him because when they first signed Clowney, it's like, all right, well, who cares? It's a flyer. And then when they cut Richardson, I thought, well,
Yeah, I
man,
didn't
they
like
just
that at the time.
they lost a serviceable defensive tackle
and
here.
a tough guy who was
Right.
respected in the locker room, had a voice,
Yeah.
and was a leader.
My
And
problem.
They don't have that right now.
I just disagree that they didn't care about defensive tackle. My problem with the
agree.
Browns is they just don't know how to pick
They haven't
defensive
picked the right
tackles.
guys.
They've cared about it.
They draft
they
defensive.
spent draft capital on it.
They
just got it wrong.
They draft defensive tackles every year in the
Yeah.
draft. They're just picking the wrong. They
Right.
just haven't developed the right guys.
So they pick bad, then they don't develop the guys.
Well,
And
yeah.
then-
I think the beef is more their ability to recognize talent at defensive tackle and their ability to coach talent at defensive tackle.
Or the ability
That's
to,
the problem.
or the abilities. I think there's a lot of things that need to be said. Nowadays, there's this premise. Well, we don't need that position. I remember 3-4 years ago that was the knock on receivers. Oh, you don't pay receivers that. You get a receiver second round. Now you see how great receivers are. We don't need D tackles. We have great ends. As a D lineman, I was like, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Defensive ends don't stop the run solely. They are pass rushers. Yes, you can stop the run on the edge, but it's the middle of the field. It's your middle linebacker. It's your D tackles.
It's the gut of your
It's
defense.
the middle. That's the soul of your defense.
I agree, G, but I'm just saying I don't think that the Browns don't care about the position. I just think they can't they've failed in evaluating the position.
I believe that they need some urgency. They going in this
Absolutely.
offseason.
Yeah.
They can't say either or. They better get defensive tackles or receivers.
I think because, Bull, what you said, I think it's true.
Yeah.
Whatever they're doing in their evaluation process of defensive tackle is not working.
It's not.
So when
Yeah.
you find that there's a particular position on the team that you have a horrible track record when it comes to identifying talent, what do? You go out and identify talent that's already broken through.
Right.
And that's
Or-
the free agent market.
or-
They've got to go out and get a big name defensive tackle free agent. Don't draft one.
I agree.
Your
Now,
track record's horrible.
Usually the best players like that are not available. Maybe some older veterans.
One
but
or two a year tend to come up.
Sure, I agree with that.
You got to get in on it.
But I would say is another thing you do when you're getting it wrong is hire a guy who's gotten it right at that position and let him help you pick the guys.
I'm glad you went there. So let me ask you this, chicken
Yeah.
or egg? Because wherever he has been as a DC,
Yeah.
even as a head coach, he's had these guys. He's had guys who were all pro defensive tackles multiple times. So my question is this. Is that just happenstance? He was going to teams that already had that position?
Yeah.
Or is he turning guys that are good at that position into elite talent?
I think it's a great question. I don't remember the timeline of like when he started with Albert Haynesworth. In fairness, he wasn't the DC, and Jeffrey Simmons is mentioned there last. He wasn't the DC in Tennessee, so I don't know if we can give him credit for that.
No, he's a special assistant.
He was like a consultant.
Right.
He was like their Yoda, as the way it was described by something you were reading about Jim Schwartz's
I was talking
role.
to people in Tennessee. He wasn't really involved in the on-field coaching in Tennessee. It was kind of a sensitive situation because they have a DC in place.
Sure.
He's beloved in that city from his time there, and the Titans were just sort of sensitive to his role.
And he's coming back in 2023. The DC that was already there.
Yeah.
So he's coming back as the DC.
So it was a little sensitive to just what he was doing, but he was certainly a valuable piece to what the Titans have done.
Right.
It was just the logistics, the visuals, and the optics.
Gee,
of the
you
whole
know
thing.
the position. Do you think that this is a case where he just was making these guys who are already good elite, or was it just happenstance that everywhere he went happened to have a great defensive interior
If
lineman?
McNuggets could look this up, I think everybody that's on that list was a first-round pick. I think everybody on that list for McGave that were Pro Bowlers might have been high first-round picks. So when you got high first-round picks on your staff and you got high first-round picks on the defensive line, you should already be starting with a very nice skill set to work with. Then it comes putting them in a certain scheme. What you learn from all those guys are aggressive up the field pass guys. They'll coach the pass on the way to the run. So basically, we'll stop the run on the way to pass. Sorry about that. But they're upfield. They're not worried about, you're in your gap and holding people up for other guys to make tackles. They're disruptive. They're in the backfield. They got Albert Haynesworth, Sue, all those guys right there.
Marcel Darius also not on that list, but he's another guy.
Another guy
that
before
he
he got
coached
hurt.
in Buffalo, who has had success, obviously without Schwartz. But again, it's just, and maybe this is another possibility, not chicken or egg. Maybe it's this. Maybe his scheme, maybe the way he builds his defense, puts these players in a position to be really, really impactful. That's possible too.
Yeah. McNuggets, what'd you say?
Yeah, to answer your question, G, all 4 of those were top 19 picks, and someone Bull just mentioned, Daron Payne, was a 13th overall pick. So that's a little match made.
Where was Marcel Darius?
He was top 5.
He was top
Okay,
5.
He was
So-
never an All-Pro. But real quick, we're talking All Browns today. This
Yeah.
is the news of the day, and we talk All Browns. It's brought to us by our good friends at Tri-C. Because Browns Talk is brought to us by Cuyahoga Community College. Tri-C supports their students financially, professionally, and personally, opening up the doors of endless possibilities. Tri-C is where the future starts, and it starts right now. Classes begin today. You got till Friday to sign up for classes. So if you want to join the Tri-C educational family, you have till Friday.
So, I mean, I guess we all agree that this is a good hire. Whether or not he was the first choice, I guess we can debate ad nauseum. We know that Brian Flores was also a guy that everybody had talked highly about. Everybody was anxious to see perhaps what he could do here. But moving forward with a guy like this, we had talked about perhaps the personality fit. Is this, we know what his personality is. I remember when he first came into the league in Detroit, there were some issues that opposing coaches had with the way his guys did things late in games that were already decided. I don't know if you guys remember that, but they were, typically it's almost, you called this season a gentleman's punt.
Yeah.
We often see that at the end of football games.
I hate that.
When it's over and guys are just kind of standing up and they're tapping the quarterback and the play's over. His guys didn't play that way, and there was a lot of pushback early on from opposing coaches saying, this guy didn't get the memo that we don't do that in the NFL. Personally, I kind of like that.
Love it.
I like that.
As long as it's not dirty.
Love
It wasn't.
Yeah.
Now there were there were also, that you bring it up, some claims that he coached his guys to be dirty. And Ndamukong Suh famously or infamously was known for as
Nasty.
the dirtiest player
Nasty.
in the NFL
Yeah.
during those years.
I don't mind it.
So I think I don't mind the aggressiveness. I just don't want to see it cross an edge. I don't think you want to be known as backyard bullies that are crossing the line.
Well, listen,
but to be aggressive is something this team, quite frankly, hasn't had since Greg Williams.
I mean, we talk about them all the time. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they've been nasty, dirty. They've been all the above letter D. One thing that you got to Baltimore. If they don't call you, if you're not saying that you're a team that actually plays dirty, that means you might not be aggressive enough. The Cleveland Browns have been great spokespeople for the world. They give charity. They rub you on the back when they're down 50.
And there's a fine
Get
line.
nasty.
The
Get
Bengals,
nasty.
the Bengals were a dirty team there with Pac-Man Jones and Vontaze Burfict didn't win anything though.
But they went to the playoffs.
Well,
Here's the thing.
I hope the days of Myles Garrett fist bumping opposing quarterbacks during the game are over. Because I think Jim Schwartz would blow a fuse over that.
Yeah, we
Sometimes
don't want
you
any
gotta
of that.
overcoach. You got to overcoach some the things that you're deficient at. There's a malaise in Cleveland. There's a way we've been used to doing things. When you come in, you got to ratchet that pressure up. You got to tell Myles Garrett, listen, you're the leader of the defense. I don't want to see you fist bumping nobody. I don't want to see y'all hugging and passing jerseys out with 2 minutes left to go. Because you can give them that clicker and you could go down game after game after game after game. It's 2 minutes left in the game and they running the ball for 14, 15 yards on you, right? Those are the things you have to take personally. And sometimes when you heat it and you're mad and you want to be competitive, sometimes you got to cross the line a few times. That's the game in itself. But at the end of the day, you got to at least be pushing the envelope on saying this is what the Cleveland Browns, you're going to have 30, 60, 90 minutes of hell if you come up in here, and be prepared for that.
by the way, Ndamukong Suh was drafted in Jim Schwartz's second year in Detroit. So, and he was an all-pro, not a Pro Bowler, but an all-pro.
Wasn't he the number 2 overall pick?
Yes, in his rookie
number
season.
2.
And so he was a no-brainer pick for the Lions at that point.
Fletcher Cox had already been in Philadelphia, I want to say 4 years by the time Schwartz got there as DC. And he had his first all-pro season the year before Schwartz got there.
So he was already
overall,
well
some of his
established.
best years were Schwartz.
Right.
Same thing with Suh. Suh had his best years in Detroit, before
We're
moving
not
on.
going to see an aggressive blitz-style defense out of Jim
That's
Schwartz.
not what he
That's
does.
not what he does.
No.
Timely blitzes, and I think I hate to call it playing it safe, but let's face it, when you're Miami and you're playing Buffalo over the weekend, and you're bringing the water boy on just about every down, there's a lot of risk that goes along with that. And, we saw at times that they've got a quarterback in Josh Allen that will make you pay in those instances. So anybody expecting all of a sudden to see Cleveland as this blitzkrieg-style defense under Jim Schwartz, that's not likely to happen.
No, but it doesn't mean you can't be aggressive in the secondary, which the Browns were not. I don't know what Jim Schwartz's philosophy in terms of how much he runs zone versus man in the secondary, but
Right.
I think the biggest problem with the Browns defense was they always seemed so passive in the secondary. That even more than the blitzing. That was my problem.
And I think we've heard from the players, and I think Tyvis has pointed this out multiple times. They just got to the point where they were overthinking a little bit too much with some of the schemes and some of the things that were asked of them in terms of some of the reads, where when they simplified things toward the end of the season is when guys like Grant Delpit started to make more plays. So just something to keep in mind.
One of the things I wanted to do with you guys this morning was to sort of just put yourself in the shoes of Jim Schwartz. He's walking into the building in Berea, and they hand him the defensive roster.
Yeah.
And he's looking at it. I only have one name, probably 2, because contractually there's nothing you can do with Denzel. But as I'm looking at what I'm inheriting, the guys that I'm really excited about is 1, Myles Garrett. Aside from that, what is he going through now in this roster evaluation in terms of if he had to immediately put a check next to each guy, he's definitely coming back. How many guys in your mind get that check?
I'd be
more than you think.
Yeah, I'd be thrilled with the corners I have. I know the 2 veteran. I mean, Greg Newsom's only in his second year. Neither one of those guys had great years, but I think there's a ton of talent at corner. I just think it was misused.
I've seen a lot of metrics after the season that Newsom had a better year than you think.
Yes, that's true too.
Has Newsom had an NFL interception?
No.
That's troubling.
Well, sure. And
That's really troubling.
But Martin Emerson played at an elite level.
Emerson was a huge
So
success.
if you're going to believe that you're going to get what Denzel Ward can give you, Denzel was great over the second half of the season. Newsom as a third corner, I'm okay with that. No, he doesn't have an interception.
He had to move positions to the slot corner this year.
So if you give me those 3 guys in the secondary, it allows you to be more aggressive.
Who
up
else
front.
gets a check? Obviously Myles Garrett, but is there anybody else? Is there a linebacker that you're excited about?
They're
JOK.
gonna give him
I
a
still
check.
think JOK.
I do.
There's
You know
potential
why
there.
they're going to give him a check? one of the reasons that I was so hot at this last coaching regime, and DePuel says it, they didn't coach anybody up. I don't know what they were teaching. Usually you could turn the table on and say, okay, this is what they teaching them. This is their fundamentals. What do they want them to take on blockers, run around blockers? They want them to set the edge, have leverage.
They're building blocks.
They do it. You can see what their scheme is. When you watch JLK, it just looked like they just said, okay, JLK, you're fast, go run around. There's no
purpose.
No. Sometimes DeQuell was like, I don't know what he's running. Why is he doing that? I think this coaching staff will strip it down, and they'll go back to fundamentals. Because what they're gonna do, they're gonna run wide 9. That's exactly what they're gonna do. Yep. And the reason you run wide 9 is
explain that for those who don't know.
The defensive ends are out very far. Usually, defensive end is if you say 7. Right, 7 is outside of the tackles. 9 is another step outside.
Right.
So your linebackers are generally in the middle of the field, and your ends are going to be outside rushing upfield.
Didn't we see a little of that this year?
We
saw not often, but
we saw a little bit of it. But the thing is, your defensive tackles have to be good. They have to be stout. They have to be threats as pass rushers. And what it does is you can't run zone on that.
Right.
If you go back and watch Eagles tape against the Cleveland Browns, you can't run on that. Because the defensive ends are already out there, so you have to run all inside games. Plus, it gives you another opportunity to get upfield and make tackles. My thing is, I don't know who their middle linebacker is going to be because that's a very important position.
Yeah, I mean,
G, let me ask you a question real quick. And Kenneth Yablowski sent us a super chat, said, "I'm going to love the wide 9s." Right before you started talking about that, so me and Kenneth are on the same page. Mm-hmm. We kind of saw, as Jay mentioned, we kind of saw some wide 9s, and if they don't fix the defensive tackles or middle linebacker situation, that's going to be a disaster. We're going to see Atlanta all over, right?
They're going to attempt to do that this offseason, though.
But I'm just saying, philosophically speaking, and I do agree that's going to be the first thing they address, a lot of the stuff Schwartz wants to do doesn't work unless they find the right guys in the middle to plug up and ensure the fact that they won't get just.
Which is why I'm so excited about this hire. Yeah. This hire, to me, aside from getting a coach with pedigree, this hire tells me in all bold caps, the Browns knew that they absolutely screwed up last year and they are going to address it. Yeah. You're bringing a guy like Schwartz in and you're saying to the world, this is the guy who's best at what we sucked at. And we're going to address the personnel situation here, which is what we want as fans.
They need 3 new starters on defense. They need 2 defensive tackles and a middle linebacker.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Walker's a free agent, correct?
Yeah.
Do you bring him back, Jay?
It's probably up to Jim.
An upgrade and a guy who's reliable.
I've talked to players on that defense who felt like they need a thumper.
Yeah.
Like they need a thumper at linebacker that they don't have right now.
I'll take that.
Reggie Ragland or Anthony Walker? You get to bring one back. Who are you taking?
No, Anthony
Walker. I don't think that's even a.
They need their Logan Wilson. That's what the Browns need to get. They need that kind of player.
Yeah.
They need 3 guys in the middle linebacker, the defensive tackles. The secondary's fine. Grant Delpit showed progress, I thought, at the end of the year.
Greedy's gone, right? He's a free agent.
I didn't know he played.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
he's gone with the wind.
I mean, I'm okay with their secondary. Frankly, they need another defensive end too.
Yeah, they do now.
They really do.
Yeah.
But now some of this is good. You can't do it all in free agency. You got to hit in the draft, and hopefully Schwartz, I assume, will be part of the mix in terms of, hey, who should we draft there?
Let's be real. You're not going to fix all this in one offseason. You can patch it enough to where you have massive improvement.
Yeah.
But you're not going to fix this whole
There's
thing
too many holes
in one offseason.
Unless you get lucky on a couple of those guys being small free agent signings that are good.
Unless Alex Wright really takes a leap next year, which I think he can play. Like, I think am I going to give him a check mark? Not necessarily a big red check mark.
There is something there with Alex Wright. You see certain times, you see flashes like,
I've seen flashes from Perrion Winfrey. If he can grow up and mature and stay out of trouble.
All of a sudden, if you sign, if you bring in between the draft and free agency and you bring in 3 new starters between free agency and the draft, and a couple of the young guys come along, could be a totally different defense.
Yes.
Now, it could go the other way. You could bring in guys, they could suck also. Who knows? But you're not likely to go from being terrible to great at all of those spots in 1 year.
That's why I always caution new coaches. Last year at this time, we were sitting there talking. We said, listen, you need to get you some defensive tackles. When you don't get them, and you say, we'd be all right, when you're trying to start these young players and they don't pan out, now you get to a press year. It's 4th year. And we all agree. I don't know if you guys agree, but this it. You now at the doorstep. If you don't do nothing this year, you starting over. So how it's a nervous feeling for me to be like, we on the chopping block, but we got to find 3 new starters, including 2 D tackles, and we got to do it in one off season. And like you said, it's not possible. You can't. They don't even got the draft capital to do anything like that.
Right, and Stefanski's in that make it or break it year, and for him, there's a sense of urgency. He may not have 2 years, 2 off seasons to bring in the personnel. It's imperative, I think, more than anything else, and this is the part of the building that I think is most under my microscope. It's your talent acquisition team, and that would include Barry, that would include DePodesta. What role in it Kevin plays, I don't know. I'm sure he has a voice, but to me, your talent acquisition team is made up of DePodesta and Barry. Those guys, I know we talk about Kevin being on the clock. For me, Kevin's just making the meal on Sunday. The groceries are purchased by the talent acquisition team in the off season.
Right.
They're the ones that are under my microscope. And because I don't know who has the most power, I'm going to lump them both together.
Yeah.
And so if we don't have a marked improvement on first-year players for the Browns next year, the DePodesta-Barry experiment is over, in my mind.
If it goes bad this year, I think everybody's getting fired and they're starting over. So I think that's. I mean, it all goes together.
Now, listen, you advocate for that, but when you hear it, doesn't it give you shivers?
So
This is why I've been screaming, don't do it.
That's why you hope that it gets turned around and we don't have to worry about any of that.
Right.
And then all these guys are here for
Yeah,
10
so
years
as
and
much
then-
as we talk about, hey, Stefanski's under that gun,
they're all under the gun.
Barry and DePodesta, particularly DePodesta, because I just think that he has an inordinate amount of pull in this organization.
I would just say, in terms of player acquisition overall over the last 3 years, I don't think they've been terrible, but
give
they
them a
certainly
C-.
haven't been great.
I give them a C-.
My colleague Zach Jackson's pointing this out often. The last Pro Bowler the Browns drafted was Nick Chubb.
Okay, I have a problem with that.
So
I have a real problem.
Was that 2018?
That was Dorsey. That was the Dorsey draft. So it would have been, it would have been 2018. It was the Baker draft.
So the Barry crew hasn't drafted
a Pro Bowler.
Your best players are from Dorsey.
But Wyatt Teller
problem.
was a Dorsey trade.
Yeah.
Batonio was way back, obviously. Miles was
Before
pre this
Dorsey.
regime. So this regime has not drafted a Pro
Miles
Bowler.
Denzel Ward.
Miles Garrett Dorsey? Or was he
I think
before-
Miles was Dorsey's first year,
No.
wasn't he? Or no?
Baker was Dorsey.
Oh,
Right.
that was his first year.
It's so sad that we have to do this.
I know it is. You know what? No other team has to run through their Rolodex of GMs, coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
No,
not.
Miles predates Dorsey.
So let me ask you guys